What's up, house groups? Welcome back. I hope everybody had an amazing Thanksgiving. So my junior year of high school, our last football game of the season was away at a rival school, and we were losing at halftime, but still in it. But as the second half kicked off, we realized my buddy Pat, our starting center, was nowhere to be found, which was a little weird. He was a team captain. So we were there on the sidelines wondering what might have happened, and ultimately we decided he was such a good dude. He was probably sitting in the locker room as his own way of passing the torch and letting the guy who'd be the starting center next year get some playing time before the season was over. It's an odd thing to do, but it was totally up his alley, the kind of thing he might do. Well, long story short, we managed to finish off the loss, like usual, and as we made our way back into the locker room, there was Pat looking sweaty, wet, and dirty, even though he had just missed the last two quarters, which was super confusing. So we're like, Pat, what the heck, man? Where were you? And then he told us one of the wildest stories I've ever heard. He said, look, I was hungry right before I left home for the game. I know I shouldn't do it, but I grabbed some pizza off my counter that I'd forgotten to put in the fridge last night. It had been out a long time, but I wanted it, so I went for it. And you guys, right as we pulled into the stadium, my stomach just died. And I tried so hard to gut it out for a half, but when everybody left to warm up for the second half, I stayed back to hit the bathroom quick. Should have been simple, but wow. First of all, I was sick. I'm not doing good, but that's not why I didn't come back out. When I went to flush the toilet, it was already clogged, and so it didn't just not flush, it overflowed immediately, all over the floor. Then I went and tried to turn off the water, but then I leaned on the handle as I was doing that, so I flushed it again, and it overflowed even more. And I was just standing there, looking there, and I was looking at this disaster, and I knew what would happen. If I left it like that, and then if we left the locker room like that, the newspaper would write about how, of course, the poor urban school was a bunch of bad sports. We went and we lost and we trashed the locker room full of poop water. And it's just I wasn't going to let it happen. That's not who we are. That's not who I am. I'm not letting that go in the paper. I'm not going to have it. And so for the whole last hour plus, I've been running around the locker room. I ran into the school building, into the bathrooms. I ran everywhere to get paper towels, to get a mop, to get a garbage bag. I had to clean this up because I'm not having anything bad written about us. And so that's why I wasn't there. I've been cleaning up this overflowed toilet, and this is one of the worst days of my life. That wasn't the story I was expecting to hear. And I hope, whatever the biggest, grossest mess you've ever gotten yourself into may be, I hope it's not as nasty as Pat's overflowing locker room toilet. Or if it is, I hope it's at least an equally funny story. No matter what your story may be, part of the reality of our shattered world is that we sometimes find ourselves with a mess that's too big for us to handle. And when that happens, we can either try to fix it all on our own, which will almost certainly make it way worse, or we can trust somebody else to fix it for us. On Sunday, we kicked off a new Christmas series called The Promise of Peace, and we looked at the very beginning of the Christmas story in the book of Genesis, where humans began to figure out what it looked like to deal with the mess of sin they'd made. It's kind of heartbreaking, because we watch in Genesis the natural impulse they have, that we still have thousands of years later, to try to go it alone, to rely on themselves, to attempt to try their way back to God, their efforts could bridge that gap. And the results of that are tragic. Cain is ultimately consumed and destroyed by his sin, and he murders his brother Abel. Abel, on the other hand, was consumed by hope. He was a guy who lived his whole life in a way where he was bringing God his first and his best, because he recognized his mess was too big for him to deal with on his own. And even though he got killed, his legacy of faith lived on for generations. From Noah to Moses to David to a girl named Mary, through whom God kept his promise that he would fix the mess we couldn't fix on our own. By stepping out of eternity into the human story and giving his life so we could be forgiven and set free. I think the ultimate question for all of us this Christmas, and really every single day of our lives, is will we trust him? Will we really trust that Jesus can fix for us what we simply cannot fix for ourselves? Actually trust it, not say we trust it, not go through the motions, not check the boxes, because all of us know the churchy answers. But will we really trust Jesus, or will we trust ourselves? Trust our human leaders, trust our human institutions, trust our stuff, or our money, or our skills? Will we keep on trying our way out of the mess that is our lives and our world, or will we trust our way out? Will we choose self-reliance or surrender? Like, at the end of the day, one of those choices creates an even bigger mess, but one of them allows us to be liberated from our slavery to sin so we can step into the lives and the futures we were made for. You guys, there's no way around it. Your sin is a lot more like that locker room toilet Pat was staring down than most of us want to admit. It's a mess and it's gross and you cannot fix it on your own. And so my challenge to you this Christmas season is to quit trying. It's not easy, but surrender is the best option.